You are listening to the IoT For All Media Network.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the IoT For All Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Chacon, and on today's episode, we have Kent Dickson, the VP and GM of IoT Platforms and Services at Allegion. Allegion owns a brand called Yonomi, which is where he focuses his time, and Yonomi is a simple, connected home integration platform. Very interesting product, actually, and platform. So if you have a chance, make sure you go check that out. This conversation is focused a lot on smart home technology, what the landscape looks like, kind of how it's grown over the last number of years, what's really enabling this transition from home automation to now more business automation within the space regarding these devices. We also talk about just kind of the growth of this trend from when he started Yonomi into now where it is, what's contributing to that trends, and where we see those trends kind of taking us. So very interesting conversation, especially if you're very interested in the smart home technology space as it relates to not just consumers, but also the business side as well. So really recommend you listen to this episode. But before we get into this episode, if any of you out there are looking to enter the fast-growing and profitable IoT market, but don't know where to start, check out our sponsor, Leverage. Leverage's IoT solutions development platform provides everything you need to create turnkey IoT products that you can white label and resell under your own brand. To learn more, go to iotchangeseverything.com. That's iotchangeseverything.com. And without further ado, please enjoy this episode of the IoT For All podcast. Welcome, Ken, to the IoT For All show. Thanks for being here this week.
Hey, Ryan, it's good to see you and hear from you again.
Yeah, I know. We spoke a little while back and had some really good conversation around what's going on over at Yonomi, and I know there's been some changes with the recent acquisition. So I'm very happy to have you back to talk more about what's been going on since we last spoke. But for those of our audience members who may not have heard that episode or be as familiar, could you start off by just giving a quick introduction about yourself?
Sure. Excuse me. Yeah, I'm Kent. When we spoke before, I was CEO and co-founder of Yonomi. We were formed in 2013 as a unifying platform for smart home devices and to unleash sort of the collective value of the whole rather than the sum of the parts of the inevitable arrival of smart devices into smart spaces. And we were very, very focused on the residential piece of that and the residential types of devices and user experiences and everything else. For many years, we continue to care quite a lot about that, and is the center of our focus. We have a platform, as I mentioned, that is available for developers to code against smart home or smart spaces. We always thought that the greatest innovation in most segments is really kind of come from the software layer when that power gets unleashed. And so we always felt the developer experience or the challenge with integrating with a lot of devices was so great that it was a threshold that couldn't be cleared by the mass majority of developers and innovators. So we wanted to lower that barrier to entry and make it much easier. So we integrate with lots of different devices, or hundreds of different devices that we integrate with. We collect those up all through a single API. We think is a very advanced and superior developer experience, and then we get to observe as our customers and partners do really exciting, innovative things. And so we continue on that path. You mentioned that a lot's happened here. About a year ago this time, we were acquired by Allegion. So now we're part of that family of products, which includes the Schlage locks that many people know. That's one of the brands within Allegion that is probably most well known. And they were already a big partner as well as a customer of our platform. And so now we're part of the family. We still operate as Yonomi, our own brands and our platform, and we continue to push the bar forward on the things that we've always been working on. But inevitably, we'll continue to go even further beyond residential into multifamily, into commercial and institutional smart spaces. Eventually, we have big aspirations.
Fantastic. Yeah, that was a great overview. I remember the first time we spoke and kind of when I started to learn about what you had going on at Yonomi, I thought it was very kind of ingenious of the way you built your product for multiple smart home devices from any or many different brands to connect and be interacted with all in one place. So I'm glad things have been going well since that conversation. And I wanted to have our chat today. Talk a little bit more about kind of the evolution of the smart home technology landscape. And since we last spoke, it's changed a decent amount. We're transitioning from this idea of more of comfort and convenience, I guess is an interesting way to kind of describe it, to a world where you can actually drive real business results for products and services that are really operating in the home. So home automation to business automation kind of vibe. Across the board with these devices. And I'd love it if you could expand and talk a little bit about that transition that's been happening over the last couple of years.
Yeah, you bet. I think that's a good characterization of it too, Ryan, that it's home automation, had a lot of attention and focus for a long time. But when you start putting in the context of what's the business opportunity that's really being unleashed by this, then you start talking about what business automation really means. So certainly there's a lot of value in consumers being able to just, have that comfort and convenience of, arriving home and the temperature is the right temperature and the music's playing and, the door unlocks perhaps.
Right.
And that's wonderful and that's really important. Like the consumers really have to feel like they get value out of the smart devices that surround them. But as I mentioned a moment ago, the real innovation the innovations that are going to change the outcome of our daily lives are how businesses are going to be able to uh, um, help leverage these smart devices to create better products and services for you, the consumer.
Right.
So that's where a lot of our attention is these days in the platform for those folks who are creating a lot of vacation rental types
Sure.
of use cases,
Sure.
as well as multifamily or MDU
hmm
types of use cases, insurance, energy management. There are whole companies who are coming up with great new solutions, some that used to exist and now they're just digitizing them
Right.
or making them much more efficient. And in some cases, brand new things that didn't used to exist because they couldn't have in a sort of
hmm
analog world, right?
Yeah, it's interesting that you kind of mentioned that because one of the questions I had to follow up here was around what's really enabling this transition, and you really kind of nailed where my mind was going, which is utilizing these smart home technologies in other settings that it's still for the end user, the person who's renting a vacation home or moving into a new apartment. To them, it's still that comfort and convenience side of things, right? But for the business side of it, the people who are managing those properties, the people who are managing, like from the hospitality standpoint, short-term rentals, like we've talked about, there's real value they can get out of this data that these devices are able to collect, to
Yeah.
not only provide value to those people utilizing their property, but for themselves as a business, like you said, energy savings, and I'm sure a number of other things as well.
Yeah, indeed. And it's really profound when you think about things like short-term rental or multifamily sort of apartment property management. The way that it has been up
hmm
until very recently is just the managing access, right, for people showing up, whether they're the renters or service people or cleaners or whomever, being able to do that as basically, you know, uh, 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 a push notification with a PIN code or whatever that says
Right.
you're about to arrive at the property that you've rented, and here's your PIN code that will work during the period of your stay, or
Sure.
you're the cleaning person who's coming now that the person is checked out of this property. You're the cleaning person who's coming, and here's your one-time access code to get in. And the fact that there's not a person getting in a car and driving to that property and meeting those people and unlocking the door, exchanging a key with
Right.
them, which has its
Right.
own
Right.
security, issues. Just the efficiency of that is amazing in terms of savings for those business people. And then when you
Absolutely.
bring it back to the consumer, just the consumer experience is way better for that too. Like,
Sure.
the individual renting that Airbnb or whatever, they really want to actually have to have a face-to-face meeting with the owner of the property and
Yeah.
go through that whole
Right.
rigmarole. They just want to show up and get in.
Yeah, I mean, I remember as a kid when we would rent property, like my family would rent properties, and we would go. You had to go to the built place to pick up the keys. You had to sign the
Hmm.
paperwork. You had to handle it all. And then you went to the property. But lately, anytime I've gone to like an Airbnb, I mean, they're just literally sending you a code to the door, and
Yep,
you're able to get in, and
exactly.
everything is set up internally without them having to handle that, personally, which is I think very efficient and everyone benefits.
Yeah, indeed. And then you mentioned about the other uh, opportunities in that to automate things, and both while creating a better consumer experience, but also just
Hmm.
creating more efficiency or higher margin, if
Sure.
you will, for your rental. Is when the person has checked in or checked out, when they literally left,
Yeah.
or when they've arrived, and so things like the thermostats and
Yep. Right.
whatnot can adjust automatically to
Hmm.
save energy. So make sure everybody's
Absolutely.
comfortable, job number one. But
Yep.
when nobody's there, make sure you're saving money, saving
100%.
energy, and that type of thing. And Also for some of these properties that may sit vacant for a while, not only is it great to have energy savings, but boy, having sensors and things like that that know if something's going wrong, like a leak, uh, a leak in an apartment or a condo or a vacation
Hmm.
home can be very, very costly. And the fact that can basically, there can be alerts, or there can be
Right.
automated things even that turn off the water if a leak is detected, can be huge,
Right.
upside for the businesses who operate those properties.
So let me ask, we kind of talked about now how far a lot of this has come, not just since the last time we spoke, but even kind of going past that and bringing it back to now. Where are these trends that we're talking about? Where do you think it's leading us? Like where does this continue to evolve to? I mean, this has obviously come a long way in such a short period of time, but just through your eyes and your, how close you are to the market in this space, particularly, where are these trends really taking us?
Well, I think most people, have heard the sort of headline attributed to Mark Andreessen, like maybe 10 or even 15 years ago: software is eating the world. And you've seen that in every sort of segment, that eventually the level of sort of software,
Mm,
value stack, I guess you would say, that exists for different markets and segments,
yep.
gets great enough that the innovation really starts to spin, and that's where the value gets created more with the software stack. That was always as I described earlier, it was always the vision for Yonomi, is that we would enable that
Okay.
for smart spaces. And so that continues to be my prediction. Where this all goes is that we'll just see more and more of those innovations, and they'll come, in the form, just as we were saying, yes, comfort and convenience and consumer experience needs to be the thing that rules the day. Nobody wants extra features or weird things in there that they didn't ask for, didn't expect, or don't enjoy. But at the end of the day, these things are going to create new businesses, or create new ways of delivering services that have always been around, like vacation rental.
Right.
And they'll get more efficient, they'll get more profitable, they'll
Sure.
get better for the consumer along the way. And it is in really all these spaces, or all, there's a whole lot of surface area to address there. The ones that, we're really mostly focused on today really are that vacation rental,
Yep.
multi-family, property management, insurance, and energy management. But it goes far beyond that, and especially once you get into other types of spaces, maybe they're retail spaces,
Sure.
maybe they're schools and universities experiences, and how what are sort of the innovations that happen there once basically really kind of focused, kind of software oriented type of startup or existing business has the ability to just in code start creating new user experiences based on the devices that are probably already on site there.
Absolutely. It's very exciting to kind of think about what this is going to enable, not just because of how far we've come, like we said, in a short period of time, but where we can kind of just creatively imagine these technologies can continue to optimize and improve efficiencies for both sides of this equation. So it's super interesting for sure. I did want to ask you though also, so as we're thinking about this, it's obviously great conversation to have and very exciting to talk about, but there's always going to be some level of challenges with this kind of transition as we grow into the future, particularly relating potentially to interoperability, just technology's changing fast, right? With different protocols, with different brands. What does all of this kind of do to that growth, and how do we kind of prepare to handle those challenges as they present themselves?
I think that's that's a really important topic. I mean, interoperability means a lot of things, but generally speaking, the way we think about interoperability is that um, let's talk about one of those innovators that somebody like hospitable.com, who has a platform that is used for vacation rental. And they're now using our platform to access some Schlage locks for the properties and everything else. But we want for a company like that is to say, we've got this platform, and one of the many things that we do, one of the many values that we provide to consumers is access. And so we should be able, we being their software product team, develop basically a feature that says this is how we'll distribute PIN codes or other credentials, or even one day just with your phone proximity, be able to unlock and unlock and authenticate. But there should be one way to do that. For them, there are dozens of different types of smart locks and access systems and everything else that might be on those homes. Hospital doesn't own those homes. They're not actually installing the gear there. They're the owners of those properties use their platform, and they can install whatever the heck they want. So in Hospitable's case, to unlock that value, if they had like one common way, one common API, just do access, one common way to do thermostatic, control and efficiency, one common way to get alerts from smoke detectors or water leak sensors or whatever, then what that enables for them is like, rather than spending man years integrating with every single one of those types of devices, they're actually doing it one time for each type of device, and therefore the other 90% of their time they're really focused on user experience. That's going to be the thing that that wins the day here, is creating great user experiences. I mean, we're plumbers. I mean, that is our fate at Yonomi. Like, we are the ones who integrate with all these things and normalize that and everything else. And so standing on our shoulders, we want to see other people really innovating on the user experience side of things, so that things are seamless, easy, comfortable, safe, convenient, and everything else. Focus on those things and less on plumbing. We'd like to make that be a non-issue for folks.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm very curious to kind of see how this continues to evolve. I think you've shed a lot of light shed a lot of light on a lot of different things connected to kind of where we're going, how we got to where we are, and it's definitely something to be optimistic and excited about. So, this conversation is been a great kind of addition to our first one, and it sounds like there's a lot of exciting things to kind of stay in touch about. I did want to ask, so on your side of things, as we kind of bring it back to the work you're doing, anything kind of I guess we should be on the lookout for, anything exciting, interesting that you're either putting out or looking forward to happening this year that we can just kind of pay attention
to? Well, on our sides, we released kind of a new version of our Yonomi platform last year. That is, I think we describe it as a second generation of the Yonomi platform. And it's a pretty new take on the developer experience. It's more focused on GraphQL and traits, so that there's like a really common way to do everything, on a lock or on a thermostat or whatever. And we think that it just has really raised the bar in terms of the developer experience and the speed and ease of using the platform as a software developer. So there's the new platform, as I mentioned, came out last year, but we continue to add a lot of features and new integrations and stuff to it this year. So please keep an eye on that, I would say. The other thing that I think is just great for the industry is the Matter standard from the Connectivity Standards Alliance. And there's been a lot of hype about that, and it's great. I think some of the first products that will be Matter compatible will be released this year as Matter gets finalized. That, the whole purpose of that is interoperability, but it's a different type of interoperability, or it's not exactly, I should say, the same type of interoperability that we're solving. It's interoperability for devices themselves. So when they get installed in a home and come on a network or whatever, it's just much easier to get them connected. Mm-hmm. We've all gone through the thing where you got to, plug in the smart plug and then, switch your Wi-Fi to join that's Wi-Fi, and then instruct it how to join your local Wi-Fi. It's a bad user experience, something that, my mother-in-law, does not want to have to deal with. I think Matter is going to make those things much, much easier and much more consumer grade. Just buy a device, bring it home. It's going to be easy to commission, provision, install, and then be discovered by other devices on your network. I think that's a great thing from a consumer experience standpoint. But what it doesn't do is create that aggregated developer experience, so that for a smart home, or a smart apartment, there's one way to actually build an app or solution. And that's still the position that we're solving. But what Matter will do, I think, is get more devices into homes and apartments.
Sure.
And that's going to be good for the industry.
Fantastic. Yeah, I totally agree with you. For our audience out there that wants to learn more and kind of stay in touch and ask any follow-up questions and just understand everything that's going on in your all space, what's the best way to do that?
We're at yonomi.com, YONOMI.com. And check us out there. We're trying to publish more and more content on some of these use cases and how people are using the platform and creating new types of businesses and everything else there. And there's also convenient ways to reach out to us through that website.
Fantastic. Well, Ken, this has been a great conversation. I appreciate you taking time again to talk to our audience, and we'll have to make this a regular thing. Have to have you back to continue to update us on the space that you occupy as it relates to smart homes, smart buildings, kind of everything when it comes to these devices that we're talking about. It's a very popular area, and I love the stuff you have going on. So we'll have to make this more of a regular cadence between the two of us.
That'd be great. It's always a pleasure, Ryan. Thanks so much.
Thank you. All right, everyone. Thanks again for watching that episode of the IoT For All podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, please click the thumbs up button, subscribe to our channel, and be sure to hit the bell notification so you get the latest episodes as soon as they become available. Other than that, thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.